That's where a lot of the comes in. We were sustaining, we were spreading the growth, we were flattening the curve to say, hey, I want to produce money every month throughout the year. I don't care if it's $1 there, because most moving companies are losing money.
No, that's for sure. Welcome back to Movified. I'm your host, Mark Hirschi, owner of Salmon's Moving and Storage, located in beautiful Vancouver, British Columbia, and Ellis Moving and Storage, also in North Vancouver. And it is Movified Mondays. But we are pumped. I am so pumped to have Beau Roskow, Executive Vice President of Nagley Moving and Storage, out in Rochester, New York. So we are going full East Coast today. Compared to the West Coast, a company that is just as old as Salmon's. I mean, it's actually older, starting in 1912. Also with Sam's Club background, it's a highlighted with high volume operations. Beau has brought razor sharp efficiency to Nagley, a leading old century company with services from local moves to international logistics, climate controlled storage. I mean, we're going to talk about all this kind of stuff. A lean inspired 5S process. They are also a United Van Line agent with over 100 years of service. Nagley's crushing it in 2025's tough market. Beau, welcome to Movified. Are you ready to share your playbook with everybody today?
Yeah, Mark. No, absolutely. And we service Rochester, but we're actually located in Elmira, New York, which is just south of Rochester, about 2 hours.
Okay, perfect. I would have no idea where that place is.
I figured that.
I thankfully at least know where Rochester is. So try to go with like a good city that is going to work for me. This is great. It was, like I said to you just before, it was watching your operations through Super Moves, finding the best movers in America, doing their whole thing with Ryan Marsh, that it really touched me to like see the detail, the efficiency, how Negley operates at such a level that it's like you raise the bar, right? For moving companies, you look at it going like, okay, guys, let's watch this clip. Let's see what their warehouse looks like and how can we get to that point within our organization. So I really just want to say thank you for taking the time to meet with Ryan, and it also opened the door to meet you as well too, and taking the time today. I kind of want to just jump into before you started over at Nagley. You were working. Your position at Sam's Club was still like upper management, managing high volume retail ops. Sam's Club, very much like the Costco, that we see everywhere. If someone hasn't heard of Sam's Club, look it up. At least they're still around, right? They're still a large operation.
Very large.
Oh yeah. Very large operation.
Part of Walmart. They're part of Walmart.
Yeah, exactly. I always think every time my parents go to the States, my dad always ends up at a Sam's Club. So I totally get it. What's the single biggest lesson from those days that you've applied to how you run the moving company today in New York?
Well, that's a great question. Being what we would have called in that old world being member, because being part of a Sam's Club was a membership. So you had to purchase a membership fee, a subscription fee that you would have every year. But beyond that, it's really being people-centric. So people-centric from an aspect, having a plan around how we're taking care of customers or what our value proposition or differentiator is for our customers. But most importantly, how that same differentiation apply to our employees, making them believe and be a part of something that enabled them to serve that membership base well, is what I was brought up inside the Walmart world with, as well as the disciplines they bake into us very early on of how to do that. But the what really came down to serving and serving your customers and serving your people.
And when you look at that, it's very hands-on, or it's very, unified with the moving industry. Like I always like to remind the guys, hey, just because you're having a bad day doesn't matter. Take a deep breath, go walk around. We are in a customer service oriented industry. We're here to serve our customers. They are why we get up to work. They're going through all the different emotions when it comes to moving day. So we need to have that type of empathy, that type of understanding, and be able to navigate any situation, from the highs and lows of walking to the customer's house and the panicking and releasing that tension, release that stress to make sure it's a stress-free move. When you look at Negley, when you walked in there, what happened and how did you like what made you get the switch? Like, because I mean, you go from Sam's Club over to a moving company. Like, can you share a little bit of your backstory of how you got acquired to work at Nagley's, and like how was that first like 60 days there?
Yeah, no, feel like that's teed up pretty well, Mark. I had no intentions of leaving Walmart and Sam's Club. I say I was raised by the company. Truly, I started at 15 years old. Product of Philadelphia came up. So the part of the story that really is rewarding for me was, I started pushing carts and left in a pretty high corporate role for the organization. And really the nice part about that organization, it was based off of, if you continue to make yourself better by making others better and by serving customers, the path might be harder, but the path is still there. You have an opportunity to keep climbing. So I got to that intersection in life where new family, me and my wife together a long time, started having kids. That next jump in a corporation like Walmart, as much as they made a lot of personal deposits over the years, it comes out of withdrawal to family. It comes out of withdrawal to time and some of the other things. So I was in that intersection in life of, what's the next 10 years going to look like? And what sacrifices was I going to be making both personally and professionally to keep moving on? And ironically, having a couple adult beverages with my father-in-law, who owned a moving company for 40 years, and I had no clue, no idea. He was just dad along those lines. So we spent time. We just got talking, and the two sides kind of emerged. I call it, Lord's plan for us. We're faith-based as well with some aspects, and it was interesting how those parallels were running together with things. He had no succession plan, but he had a legacy of being self-made and pulling himself up by his own boots. And we talked through what this could look like. So I took that leap of faith and kind of said, you know what? It's entrepreneurial. It's serving. It hit all those check boxes of what I was doing, just in a whole other world, Mark, a whole other world. So probably a little sick, of which I am. I took a 2-week vacation. I'm the only one that does. So my father-in-law, let me preface this, initially said, why don't you come up in December and check it out? And I said, after reviewing his financials and stuff and seeing such the peak and valleys of this industry, I said, no, I said, I think I want to come up when you guys want to absolutely pull your hair out. No pun intended, along those lines. And he's like, okay, why don't you come up the last 2 weeks of June then? Come up the last week of June and the first week of July. So I came up. And very similar to the backstory you gave me earlier before we got on, I sat down, I observed the first 3 days, and then I had a personal interview with everybody in the organization. I didn't care if you were a 2-day seasonal person, if you were here 20 years in the office. And I sat down and observed you for a day. I asked a series of questions. And then after 2 weeks, I did the analysis. I sat down with my father-in-law and said, I'm willing to take this on. Let's see what we can do. I said, with the understanding, this will be done differently. And once I win the trust and the integrity and the respect of the team, your company is going to look different. And 10 years later, we look quite a bit different.
Wow. What was the company doing 10 years ago that you automatically, when you came in, you wanted to change?
So we were 90% household. And we lived in 120 days. Our world was really, everything else was an ancillary to the peak season. So everything else, I brought it up on the Super Move Walk. It was like a different world of farmers. It was like everybody lived for the crop season, and then they just prayed that the off season would hold enough that they wouldn't lose enough money or have issues that they would go up, they would go bankrupt. Scared me to death. I have no idea how this industry did it for that period of time, but as we started looking at things and
They
backing up
still
and
do it.
things,
They still do it. They still-
absolutely.
yeah.
As I started looking at things, there was a lot of opportunities that we were using as secondary options that really had life of their own. If a good plan was put in place and good strategy was put in place, and we grew that, and we just diversified. We created, not to get over geeky with it, but SOPs as well as different pieces and measurements, and most importantly, people talk about a lot. We build a culture. We build a culture of engagement. We build a culture of understanding and being mission driven.
Hey everyone, Matty Mailers here, the guy who pioneered handwritten letters for the moving industry. Why? Because my competition at my moving company was using the same stock postcards as me, and my mailing company didn't care. So I created a better way. Here's some mind-blowing results in July. Miracle Movers Utah closed $93,000 using our handwritten letter strategy. With our campaigns, you can forget about the guessing games. You get a trackable phone number, daily photo proof, an incredible design team, and I'm also included. All letters stop at me for approval before they ever leave our facility. Right now, Movified listeners get 1,000 golden tickets stuffed in our genuine handwritten letters completely free. Plus, I'm going to throw in bulk realtor data for up to 5 counties. What are you waiting for? Moving Letters AI. Stop competing, start dominating.
When you talk about the highs and lows and that 120 days, it really always goes for all of us when we think about the moving industry. It's the, that February, March. Okay, guys, we're going to ramp up a marketing. We're going to get out there. We're going to go. Summer's going to be super busy. Okay, we're going to cut down marketing now because we don't need to in the summer because we know it's going to be busy. We're going to ramp it back up again in the fall. And it's this like crazy wave that always happens. And then you always, I used to always joke and say, well, you really know who is committed to the company by November, December, because if they don't mind the hours dropping and stick it through that winter, like you really have a good employee because they'll usually like, oh yeah, I'm leaving or I'm going to go do something else or I'm going back to this. And your goal as a business owner is to have that, like, there's going to be that 20 to 30% drop possibly, but you should be able to keep consistently workflow and looking at how, what do you need in the wintertime? Maybe are you going to put like a snow plow in the front of your truck? Maybe now you're a snow plow service. Like, you're trying to be creative on how can this work? Hey, someone's going to need to switch into winter tires. They're going to have the summer tires. Maybe we can do a pickup for that. Maybe we can have a discount on Fridays just to fill in those extra days and everybody books in on a Friday or a Thursday. There's creative ways to do it. Within Nagley, you flip the script and change something a bit differently than just, having those monthly meetings. Do you want to elaborate a little bit on that 90-day quarter process of how you've split up the entire year as opposed to just focusing on summer and winter?
Yeah. So my first 2 years, obviously, just trying to be a student in the business. Similar from an aspect, my father-in-law brought me along to the New York State Movers Association, where similar enabled me to just sit back and listen. A couple things was interesting. I'm a guy came from a whole other world, whole other industry. So just wanted to take several years, and actually was being prodded by a lot of other leaders of other moving companies as I gathered around my age, like, hey, speak up, speak up. I'm like, no, I'm here just to listen and see and observe and see what was going on. I grew up in the rules of, don't change the rules so you understand the rules, or at least see how the game's played. Then let's come out with something that might be able to shake it up a little bit. And, after I saw what 95% household similarity look like, and the busting at the seams with pressure test, busting at the seams with talent development plans, busting at the seams with maintenance aspects, busting at the seams with we operated in the red, what I would call almost an engine. We revved that sucker for 12 weeks like it wouldn't believe. And then we wonder why it couldn't sustain itself every other time, because nothing is built to work in that time frame. And then as I was also observing the good and the bad in the industry, even bad movers made money in the summer. So what were you doing if you know that market share is already there? You're spending all this other stuff prepping for something that's already there. You're fishing in the pond that has fish. Where do you move outside of that? And that's where the 90-day trends really came in, because there were little underliers there. There were little pieces, and not even diversifying from an aspect of putting a plow on the front of a truck. What were you doing with material sales? What were you doing with truck rentals and getting into Benske's and budgets and ancillary stuff? What were you doing if you owned real estate for last mile delivery stuff for warehouses? What were you doing with other pieces? And when you really started to see and paying attention, being a good student in January, said, looking at those jobs and looking at those numbers and saying, okay, why did we only do one of these? Oh, well, I had a general manager that was in the role for 50 years, learned a ton from him, but he was like, well, that's what was available in the off season. Well, why weren't we planting those seeds in the summer season to double that? And you got this eye look like, that's not what we do here. And it was like, okay. And we fished. And then once we started to take those little pieces, and most importantly, which gave my father-in-law almost a heart attack on this, was setting a capacity in the summer, saying, no, our success rate is going to be at 90%, not 100. And this is what 90% looks like by numbers. So if I don't have the right staff trained, I don't have the right this trained, I don't this, I'm not sacrificing my brand or the integrity of the process to get the extra 10%, because then once the dust settles, I lose it all in claims and everything else 3 months down the road. So let's start really trending and looking at all these things, that just because I put $1 in my pocket, you don't realize you just lost $1.20. So understanding those numbers and understanding those pieces and saying it's okay to incrementally grow, but most importantly, incrementally ground a foundation that wasn't so sporadic. And it just took time. It took time to change the thought process. It took time to build those processes. I laugh all the time, Mark. I said the industry was like Aborigines. Unless you grew up in it by song, you never knew what to do season by season. And yet, if you didn't learn, you died real quick at the end of a summer because you just absolutely spun your wheels off of it. And we just listened and listened and listened and started building that back to the part of being diversified. We're 40% household now.
I love the fact on diversification, because I always say, like, don't ever rely on that local COD market, because now you're heavily relying on interest rates, the population in your city, what's happening in the market. And if you at least, and we've talked about this on the podcast a lot, if you got into storage and you can fill your storage, you want to have it so that you fill it enough that it pays for your office staff. And so at least that part's all covered. If you can get it so that you are making enough money that's covering like your sales staff and the commissions and everything else, like a lot of those monthly hard fixed costs are taken care of. The movers can come and go. Like, you can kind of figure that out. Now it's getting out there and finding the work. But to diversify, there are so many niche markets where people need moving. Like, it's crazy if you don't start opening your doors. And now with things like AI and ChatGPT, you could just ask the prop, hey, I live in, Vancouver. What is some of the most desired, items that maybe need to move? How could I diversify my moving company? And it maybe pump out all kinds of different options. Most people go, great, I'm going to do cleaning and I'm going to do junk removal. But, there is long distance. You can look at the film industries. You can look at interior designers that are available, stagers that need help, maximizing with the realtors and trying to get into commercial space. It only takes one or two guys from another moving company or you to take the time to learn how to move and take apart like a steelhead, compartments and the cubicles and worry about an office move to figure it out. And if you can go hire like a really good handyman guy that could be a third party contractor from the side, now you just have your movers and you have couple installers that are dismantling and reassembling it, and your subcontractor still making a bit off the top, and you're not worrying about, oh, I need to train these guys on how to do it. Like, there are small little bits to, get the ball rolling. At what point after those first couple of years did you sit down with your father-in-law and go, okay, like, we need to diversify, and these are the options? Like, how did you go about that, especially in the location that you are, to then get into those types of niche areas that I would like you to share and what you all do?
Yeah. So again, to give him credit, he was diversified. He just wasn't penetrated. So what I mean by that is, in a way, like, they had already knew what you just kind of teed up from an aspect of going, hey, here's those gaps we got to define. But I think they were almost so exhausted after those periods of time of going from such a ramp up and a ramp down. Again, it just turned into filler. So the first thing that we kind of did when we looked at the numbers, and I'm a numbers guy a little bit. I enjoy analyzing that stuff and looking at that, from market trends to heat maps to penetration areas to stuff like that. What I kept seeing as a overlapping pattern was that it wasn't that the opportunities weren't there. We just did not proactively plan for those opportunities. And I use this correlation. Ryan's loved it from the beginning of On June in that group, that every diversification has a Christmas season. So just like when I came from retail on there, I'm not selling pumpkins in July, unless there's some weird special event that somebody wants to do. So I might need to have ability to get it, but I don't really need a lot of it. Now come September leading up, sure, I'm going to start building that up, because that peak, I'm going to sell a lot. But then how do I get out of it fast? How do I pivot and transition fast that we go? And that's how we kind of started looking at, instead of selling merchandise items, how was our personnel able to do that? So when I looked at our book of business, or the book of business we wanted to, what was their primary skill? What was their second, third, fourth, as it matched our diversification revenue lines? And then how many did I need if that vertical really took off to be able to have a good mix, and then start building on it? But I couldn't have a 1 through 6. I use a major league pitcher as prime example. You can have 4 pitches. If they all suck, you're going to get hit. So might as well have 2 great ones. And then as you start working on some others, you can build up to it, but be really great at the space you're in, then start building it versus throwing the shotgun approach out on it. And really, that's all we did. We kept backing that up and saying, when we get to this percentile, we're going to hold, and then we'll add another 20% somewhere else. And then when we move 20 to 40, now we're going to add 10 somewhere else, with the idea that we were not growing. That's where a lot of it comes in. We were sustaining, we were spreading the growth, we were flattening the curve to say, hey, I want to produce money every month throughout the year. I don't care if it's $1 there, because most moving companies are losing money through the other ones and then trying to make it all up. No. Let's get stable along those lines. Now we'll build and take the low-hanging fruit when it comes in those other quarters that way. And I go all the way back to even the name of these companies. Why is everything moving and storage? Really, if you really want to look, it should be storage and moving. Everything else should be the ancillary off of your repetitive income. So why would you concentrate on everything else and park it? No, flip the script, guys. If you got real estate and you got space, have stuff that's going to pay you 12 months out of the year, and use your transportation as the ancillary, not the storage as your ancillary.
Note to self: change company name to Salmons
and we did
Storage.
It's well too known, but I've had that conversation with the others going, think about this. Would you rather build ancillaries off something that's going to pay you 12 months out of the year, or do you want to build an ancillary that's only going to pay 4 months out of the year? FBI calls that a clue, my man.
Yeah, no, that's for sure.
Before we ever started using a moving CRM, someone asked me, could you 10x what you're doing right now with the current systems and processes you have in place? And I said no. And so he was like, well, then you need to just pull the trigger on the software. And then I saw Smart Moving, and it was game over.
Austin joined thousands of moving owners on Smart Moving in 2021. Since then, he's more than doubled his business.
And And I always compare smart moving to Apple products. It's just so simple, so easy to use, and that's really what's allowed my team to scale and now have 2 branches. And last year we scaled Central Coast Moving over 50% growth.
If you're ready to turn your moving company into a machine that drives profit, not chaos, try Smart Moving.
Being found on the second page of Google is literally like having a billboard in the middle of the desert. Your mama ain't gonna see it. No one's gonna see it. You're on the second page of Google, no one's gonna call, no one's gonna book. Here is the deal. If your business is not ranking on the top of Google, that means your competitors are going to be stealing your customers every single day. So at Rotate Digital, we don't play any guessing games. We use data-driven SEO strategies to make sure Google finds you first so that these Google searches turn into your customers, not your competitors' customers. How do we do it? We do it through AI-driven keyword optimization, exclusive blog networks, backlinking strategies, and honestly, the secret stuff, the proprietary lead attribution software. So what do you get as a result? You get not only good marketing, but now you get clarity into what is bringing you more revenue. So if that's something you want to do, you want to make sure your leads find you and not your competition, go ahead and go to rotatedigital.com, schedule a call, and we'll help you take your business to the top of Google.
When you look at your, having it being diversified, there was, when I think of the images in the video that I saw of your warehouse. Oh, actually, you know what? Before you want to go into this other question, there was one before, and I already trailed off the other one. You were talking about looking at the heat maps, finding the numbers, looking within your market because you're a numbers guy. For those that are listening that say, I don't understand what Beau's talking about. I want to say that I'm a numbers guy, but that more means like I'm looking at the books. I'm looking at the P&L statements. How could someone like what would be their approach to start looking into what's happening in their market?
No, that's a great question. So numbers are just pieces, right? Until you understand the relationships to the numbers, that's when the magic happens. So one of the things coming in naked or blind, I would say, to the industry, which sometimes can shade you from seeing these parallels because you're so close and you've done it so many times, you're anticipating ghosts. So you're not even anticipating the reality of what something is. You're using your rear view mirror to predict where you're going and not paying attention to what the market's actually showing you. So what that meant for me was taking a 3-year span of numbers. And most P&Ls or most things are broken down into the type of business you have. And even if you don't have it, that's okay. Go through a year's worth of jobs and categorize them first. Were they locals? Were they intras? Were they inters? Were they moving office stuff? Create platforms or create categories of how much volume you did in that type of work. Data point 1. Then data point 2 is, when did that happen? So back to those 90-day windows, right? So January, February, March, April, May, June, so 12-year calendar year, and do a tally. Tally what those numbers were. And what you will come to find out is at different times, those jobs actually competed with each other. And you spent all your revenue, you spent all your resources here and weren't able to train your crew to do the other. So all of a sudden, when this one died and this one had opportunity, you didn't have a staff to capture those opportunities because they came later down the road, but you weren't even identified with that. You can almost predict that office moves or state jobs are going to pick up when budgets renew. When do budgets renew? Budgets renew the beginning of the year. So people do 2 things in state jobs. They're going to spend a ton in the first 90 days. And then, or you're going to get the very conservative folks that are going to go, nope. And then all of a sudden they have to protect their budget and they're going to spend everything they have in the last 90 days or they don't get the same money again. How do you predict that? How do you start seeing that? Because all of a sudden you're going to go, whoa, wait a minute. Why'd this little flyer job pop up in February for X? Wait a minute. Why'd this job pop up at the end of November for Y? And as you start patterning those, you go, oh, wait a minute. This has happened the same time for the last 3 years. How do I get out in front of that? How do I start talking to those folks about that? So really It's putting those numbers together, Mark, and kind of seeing those pieces and then listening. One, how much do we know about our competitors? What are our competitors great at? Too many times I think we're always trying to beat our chest to say, hey, we're better than them. We're better. Yeah, I'll tell you right now, I'll tell any of my customer, my competitor is better here and here. If this is your primary thing that you're doing, I would recommend there, because I want you to keep coming back from repetitive business. And if I don't give you good experience, you're not coming back. So I may have beaten them once, but realistically, I lost that trust and the integrity in that process. If I refer them for something they're great at, chances are if they deliver on that and then they know I'm great at something, it's coming back full circle. So now we're working in that. Again, now if we're hitting the same compete and we're even to even, sure. Now it's back to differentiating. But most markets, there's more to go around. And instead of stepping on each other, collaborate, understand where that's at, and you can actually give a better customer experience, which helps the entire industry move forward. And that's kind of the approach. And I'll tell you, Mark, I mean, I have people go, you're nuts. This has nothing to do with what you're doing, but it's just a different spin on it. And it's been very successful with it.
I completely agree with you on that. And that's where I started having a small mastermind group of 5 or 6 business owners and I want to make sure it was handpicked with, this one is franchised all across North America. This one, is an office space, but does like box rentals, and they're a smaller firm. Another one that, only works with, more apartment moves than anything. And then myself, that has more diversification on, the grandfather clocks, the pianos, the office moving side of things. And yeah, sure, we might compete over a quote here and there, but there are certain aspects where it goes, hey, there's this huge office move going on. You're really good in that part of it, but we need your experience on here. So how can we collaborate? And we're both making money off a project that we're going to fight over and, keep cutting down the pricing to this customer to try and win the job. And then we go, oh shit, like we just had to downplay this price so much that you're not going to probably get our A guys anymore. It's probably going to be the B and C.
Absolutely.
And then you have claims, you have problems. The customer's not happy. They don't want to refer you. And they should have said, I should just went with those. Instead, it's building that community within your local city, or just outside on how can this work. And especially, in your diversification, I can only imagine other moving companies going, hey, I got to give Beau a call or his team at Nagley a call because this client has a high-end art piece that's worth, $100,000. We don't want to touch it, but we'll do the local move, but they can come in and do the creating and do everything else. But if you didn't have that type of community, those referrals wouldn't be there.
100%. And the trust in building that, we have a Diamond and Bayhorn has been here forever in the Elmira area. Great company, family owned. Danny, I know well. And there's been a mutual respect. We'll compete where we need to compete, but we will compete with integrity and with ethics, with the aspects there, because short-term wins are only going to give you long-term problems. And sometimes it's just hard to sometimes see that, especially when you're grinding and struggling, but you step back. We don't hire each other's people. We don't create bidding wars among labor. I mean, it just, there takes a little bit of that trust and that piece that you got to build in, and you'll get bad actors, but it real quick. That's the best part. And the sad part is your best litmus test of bad actors is your customers. A customer has a bad experience with a bad actor, they're not going back. So sometimes you got to be patient and lose the little fish occasionally, with the understanding you're not going to dip below your values, because it will come back full circle. But you got to be consistent in your practices.
For sure. I completely agree on that one. When we talk back at Sam's Club, I can only imagine the demand of razor sharp inventory management must have been just key to making sure that everything is running smoothly and everything is translating those principles, over to the moving industry. Can you elaborate a little bit on like the climate controlled storage and the international logistics that have to go into, and how you incorporated, taking how it was, that type of inventory management system, like, was it already in place when you came in as well too? Yeah, I love it. You're laughing. But like, because it's so fine tuned, and we were talking about this off air about the 5S storage process. And I even saw one that said a 6S storage process. And there's certain steps on here, how to operate and be fine-tuned in your warehouse. Can you elaborate on that process, for those that are in the storage game that, me and Stephen Reed actually joked about this the other day, when we were talking about storage, and he was saying, oh yeah, I used to just rope off with a yellow, caution tape, here's this customer and then here's that customer, and take a printout piece of boy paper, write down Smith on there, that, and you're hoping that everything stays, and no one's stealing that bike that, that's sitting in, or tied in with just like a yellow rope. What does it look like now, and can you run us through that process? Because I bet you those that are listening go, I don't even know what a 5S means. So, how does that work? How did that
Yeah.
come about?
Yeah. So to unpack that, several different things. So it's actually created from manufacturing world. So the 5S, 6S, and the 6S is really safety now. But really it boils down to make it simplistic, and anybody wants to look it up, it's straighten and sort and sustain. And there's all these terminologies with these breakdown charts to it, but it's as easy as saying clean, neat, and straight. Everything having its place, every place being labeled, every label being universal, that if you're there day one or you're there 100 years, you can read and comprehend and intuitively know this is just where it's at. So back that up even further, I came from a warehouse world standpoint that actually by design worked on lower margins. Sound like a similar industry? So all of a sudden, if you're going to work on lower margins to give better pricing and better pieces, where you protect your margin is in your cost. And throw labor out of the aspect. We all know that's the highest labor cost or the highest expense cost you're going to have, and you can always maneuver and adjust with that. But look at your materials, look at your process, look at your efficiencies. And they're the hitting costs. They're the creeper costs that a lot of people don't pay attention to. And when you sit there and watch and go, okay, just something fun, what's the top 3 boxes that you use in a season? Well, probably everyone's going to have a little different, but most likely they're going to say, oh, 1 5s, there's 3 O's, they're going to say this. And you stop and look at your warehouse and say, where are they located? And they look at you sideways and go, do you realize they're 100 yards away from where you load your trucks? Yet the boxes that you maybe use 1 every 2 weeks is the one closest to the door to where you load your trucks. So your entire workforce team is now doing tremendous miles. Maybe it's part of your fitness program and it's a bigger strategy, or you want to get them closer. And then you come and find out a great little story. I tell you, at Nagley, I watched 8 trucks return in my first 5 days when I was at Nagley. And they left, they were done because they were rushing, they were there, and they all came back. And I'm observing, I'm like, why do they keep coming back? Every truck came back because they didn't have paper. And you need paper for the boxes. Right?
That's right.
Right? Yet the paper.
It's like forgetting tape.
There you go. Funny. The paper was the only item that was located on the other side of the wall of where the main traffic came from. So only the people who were the most experienced would know to go grab the bundles. Yet inside your world, majority of the time, who are the people that they made load trucks? The seasonal people have been there for 3
That's
weeks.
right.
Because
That's
it was
right.
this hierarchy greenhorn. It was like the crabbing industry or something. I don't know. It was fun to watch. And then they were wondering why they were all pissed off and coming back because nobody was double checking it. Then they would roll out and then go, oh shit. And everybody would roll back. Well, we would yell, we would scream, we'd tell people they're stupid, we'd do all this tough stuff. Yet, why is the paper in a place that intuitively you wouldn't know that? We moved the paper, and then for the next 3 years, we did not have one truck come back without paper. So it didn't matter if you had 30 years of experience or 3 days. when it was the last thing you saw before you went out the door, it clicked in, I need this. So something that small, scale that even bigger. And that's where that came from, even from our Sam's Club world. And the other piece, the other part is, if you know you have those 3 box sizes, why are you buying packing material every 3 weeks to backfill? So if you have space, why aren't you buying 12 weeks worth of material to get that extra 10% off that you can then use elsewhere, and you stage it up above? So now you know you're never going to be out, because what's your highest percentage of usual costs that you're going to get from a margin standpoint of a good move? In your packing. If you don't have the packing material, how are you going to pack? So all this stuff of stepping down and looking back and seeing this, because everyone said, well, I'll just go buy more packing material. Great. That's no problem. You just blew 10% of what you would have had in addition if you were out in front of it. And that's really where we got to. Well,
if you're considering Snowball, just do it.
Snowball creates done-for-you referral programs for moving companies so you can turn happy customers into new revenue without lifting a finger. And the results speak for themselves.
In less than a year, we've collected over 2,000 referrals.
We generated over $200,000 of revenue that cost about $5,000 to do it.
I believe we have 4 or 5 the very first day.
The companies winning with Snowball are the ones that already care about their customers. We just help turn that into new business through human outreach and customer nurturing.
Snowball is part of the arsenal of tools that I recommend to my clients because it works.
What's up, guys? It's Austin Yarrow with the Moving Army. If you're listening to this podcast, I'm sure you're crushing it, you're growing your business, and you don't need any help. Majority of you probably don't. But the thing is that information alone isn't enough. If you're looking for someone to hold you accountable, work with you, and collaborate with others in our industry with teams that are killing it, crushing it, you need to join the Moving Army. This is my invitation to you. You can text my personal cell, 805-441-6118. I'll see you soon, and wait for your call. Join the Moving Army today.
And more running around as well too, and the ones that are like, oh, I'll just take 2 bundles of 2 cubes, and then you could have saved so much more if you just got the skid, and you're just constantly trying to replenish every week. It was one of the biggest things. When I took over Alice, I walked in the warehouse and I observed the week before, just like you did, and I watched these guys getting ready for a pack job. And I was looking around as I walked into the warehouse, right where the loading docks are, and I go, where's the driver? Oh, he's getting packing supplies. Where's the packing supplies? Oh, at the very end of the warehouse, there's the rack system, and all the packing supplies are on there. And I watch him, fill a cart, slowly come back and forth. And I said, what, is this efficient for you? Oh, no, it's not. I do so much walking back and forth. It takes about 15 minutes of my time. First week now that I've taken over, I said, guys, let's go. We're going to reroute this. We need to everything, because he had a tool hole area for repairs and supplies, everything on one side that was like 8 feet from the loading dock. And I saw this great open space. If we just cleared this out, we can move this racking in and put all the supplies right there. Now it's all in one area. Now, if you need anything, you can't miss it. And everything is labeled and organized. And the guys go, thank you so much. This saves us so much extra time. I said, yeah, it's because it should be efficient. Like, you want to make it so, because, to me, you want to get everything loaded and out the door and be on time for your customer. You're going to show up 15 minutes late because you had to walk a half a mile just to go pick up your packing supplies. And then you get all the way to the back and go, oh, forgot that packing paper. All the way back again. No, to me, it doesn't make sense.
100%. And even to go further from a role clarity and some of the others, I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed, but, I remember my first couple days coming in when they would say, well, go get the 3.0, go get the 4.5. Go get this. So we started talking in a language that made us feel more important. They're all boxes. Did you ever see what a flat box looks like? You can't tell the 2 inches that are different, and nothing is labeled in there. So now let's go back. Let's look at our numbers again. 60% of our summer staff is all new hires. This might have not even come from the most skilled workforces there are. And you're expecting them to pick up an industry knowledge in that short period of time when all the damn boxes look alike? Come on,
Can you
guys.
go grab some 2s, some 4s, some 5s? Can you go get some dish pack boxes? Make sure you have the wardrobe boxes. Wardrobe boxes. What's a wardrobe box?
What the
Oh
hell's
yeah,
a
hey, do you have the?
wardrobe? I don't even own a
Oh yeah,
wardrobe. I've been wearing the same t-shirt and shorts for 4 months. Like,
and then you get there to the customer's house with 5 wardrobe boxes, and you go, "Where's the bars?" There's bars that go in there.
what's the bars? Oh, exactly. So,
Yeah.
so as simple as that sounds,
Right.
back to that 5S, going to color coding, going to pictures on the labels. And literally I had some of my more experienced long-term people go, well, what do you think, we're all idiots? Not all of you, but and I said, but you're not setting people up for success. I said, how do we? I said, and intuitively, the goal is with a 5S warehouse that you could have 0 industry experience and you could do 80% of the efficiency. 0 experience and do 80% of the efficiency. And then we had to unpack that. Well, what did that mean? Well, where's your tools? Well, what tools? Exactly. So you should know what tools you would use every day, 80% of the time. Where are they located? Where do they live? And are they there in the beginning of the shift and the end of the shift? What's 80% of the material you use? Where do they live? All the time. All the time. And what level should be there before someone puts up a flag going, we might want to get more because our par level or our frequency level or our turn level changes. So maybe in February I use 20 a week, but in June I'm using 80 a week. So then what should my back stock look like 4 weeks out, considering I have 12 weeks of peak? Simple math. Now I can do the numbers and know what I have, because I don't want to carry all that through all the off season, because that's overhead and costs that I might need that cash flow for. So then when do I know when to build up, have the proper stock for that period of time, trend it, anticipate my 20% growth in that piece, then tail down and fill that space with something else I need during the next season. And it just all will evolve. That is a 5S warehouse that connects operations, connects sales, connects innovation, and connects growth.
I love it. And I feel like you could take that, when you start at the warehouse, you start applying that also to your trucks. You make sure it's being applied in the office, with health and safety, and making sure that's all done. And that culture evolves on being, hey, we're here about safety. We're here about, not reinventing the wheel, but we're also about efficiency and making sure that it's efficient enough to maximize time and profit. And this is the setup. You've laid the rule book out. Beau, before I end this, you have so many years of I would only imagine the different mentors and people that you've met over, from Sam's Club and previous, and being such a strong leader at Nagley. What is one of the best advices that a mentor has given to you?
One of the best advices a mentor has given me. That's a great question, because there's been so many, so many. But the one that probably sticks that I heard the most consistently through everybody, the means, is probably, it's almost in a quadrant of 3. Listen, actively listen. Don't hear, listen, truly listen. Listen to the people who are taking care of your customers. Listen to your customers. Listen to the people who support you. Listen to your family. Listen to all these people that depend, and be a really good listener. Truly listen. Listen more than you speak. The second part that they would have is on there is, after you've listened, stay curious. All these industries, I don't care what industry you're in, it's a grind. Everybody works harder. Everybody goes in there. But if you don't stay curious and you feel like you've arrived, I hope you're close to retirement. Because if you're just holding the place, that's tough. And if you don't stay curious, you're serving so many people, especially in the leadership roles, but in any role. But most importantly, in the leadership roles, stay curious. You have to grow and adapt and change just as fast as everybody else is. And I think that's tiring, especially as we get older. I tell you, there's things I'm like, I don't want to read that, but I know I have to. And I know I have to stay relevant. And probably that third piece, and this is probably a little more tactical along those lines, is you got to have some type of compelling scoreboard. I was an athlete. I loved athletics. I did a lot of things. And one of the best questions I got asked by one of the mentors of mine as I was going through some of the peaks and valleys, they said, how long would you play the game just for love? And it was a really good question because I said, I don't know. That's a good question. They said, yeah. So if we took that scoreboard away and you didn't know if you were winning or losing, how long would you just keep playing to play? And it really helped reshape my mind because as much of the different sports I played, I did love them. But that level of competition and knowing when that scoreboard was up, if I was winning, if I was losing, if the team needed to adjust, if we needed, was just as inspiring as actually doing the actions. So I think as I combine those in overall those years of being a good servant leader, trying to be the best servant leader I can by listening, and then being curious and making sure I'm pushing myself to adapt and change and stay involved as I am trying to push the needle, but keeping an edge that, we do have to keep score. And we need to keep score as a collective team, not against each other. But if we don't know if we're winning or losing, we're going to all lose the passion to serve our people.
No, for sure. It's so well said. Those are three fantastic points. I'm going to end with this last final question. If someone handed you $1 million today, what would you invest in?
Somebody handed me $1 million today, what would I invest in? I would invest in AI. 100%. I think AI is so universal into so many different fields with so many different things. I almost would like to flip the word. I wouldn't even say it's artificial intelligence. I think it's intelligence assistance. Everything is always driven by already a root cause thought. It's just the speed, efficiency, and development from consistency and speed to market of what it's offering is enabling people to get out of the weeds of things and the tactical things that have slowed them down and really drive the more complex things that need that touch or need that new art or need that new form. And when I look at the moving company in general, the moving industries in general, there's so many tasks that are just unnecessary that we've done because of legacy, that if we got them out of the way, we could create an experience, a relocation experience in any of these things that would be revolutionary, that would be different, that would be value add. Huggable moments, what I said, what's the difference between a handshake and a hug? They're both an emotional aspect, but one just is such a gratitude for help. How do we create those huggable moments by just solving something that's so easy at someone's time in their life that is usually preparing them for something else?
I love that huggable moments. I love a good hug.
Yeah, man. I mean, hey, bro hugs.
Everybody loves a good hug.
Bro hugs, family hugs. They're all over.
That's
but
right.
It's funny. Another observation part, Mark. I looked at going, what generates that? What causes that? What really causes a hug? And it's a lot of emotion. It's emotion driven. And you started this whole thing off earlier saying, what do? Most movers are moving people during their climax of emotions. New jobs, lost a job. New marriage, lost a marriage. Birth of a child, death in the family. These are like the top emotional things that people deal with in life. And we got front row seats starring in that movie. How do we ride shotgun to make that the best experience possible? I just think that AI would help us a lot with that.
Hi, I'm Mark Hirschi with Salmon's Moving and Storage. Today, I want to talk about Tighten Up training. Why? Because this is Netflix grade quality training. It's not those old videos and VHSs that you got hiding in your office somewhere. It's online, it's easy to use, they're short videos, but they get to the point. My new employees, these guys run through these training programs, there's tests at the end, and they're coming out going, oh, I'm ready to rock. So if you haven't checked out Tighten Up training yet, get a demo done. Get on board. Guess what else is there? Online portals for my sales staff. Can you believe it? These guys can learn how to overcome objections and book more leads today. So What are you waiting for? Go check out Tying Up Training today.
Love it. Love it. Oh boy, Beau, this has been fantastic. I feel like we could keep talking for like another hour and all kinds of different experiences and things that go on. We'll have to save that for like a part 2. If everybody that's listening has enjoyed the show, please like, subscribe, comment. Let us know what you're doing right. Are you applying the 5S system in your warehouse? Are you looking to diversify your moving company and looking for how to? Hopefully this was super informational to you. We always appreciate any feedback, and make sure you are checking out Nagley's website, what they kind of do, investigate. Go follow Beau on LinkedIn as well too. We'll have all the links below, as well as include a link to a PDF printout for this 5S system that you all can follow, so you don't have to go ahead searching for it. Beau, this has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for taking out the time out of your busy day.
Mark, thank you.
It
was an honor to do it. Thank you. I appreciate it. Anytime we can help, happy to help.
I appreciate that. And for all those that are listening, stay movified. Until next time, thank you.